in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
And anybody notice Kirk Cousins is actually pretty good against Aaron Rodgers? Listen, I thought when I watched that game, the only surprise to me in the 23-7 win is that it wasn't 33-7. I thought they completely dominated Green Bay. Now, the Packers' O-line's beat up, but they went and got Zadarius Smith to be a pass rusher. He was great. I think Minnesota is, I said it in the preseason, I said it in the offseason, I'll say it now. This looks like a 12 or 13 win division winning team. I don't know what their weakness is. They're not great at corner, but they're good enough.
Man, Colin Cowherd, dude, there is some serious Vikings Kool-Aid being passed around the national media and probably the local media too after what we saw in that game in week one. Mackie and Judd here on a Write That Down Wednesday. We'll get to our Write That Down predictions, accountability session on both Mackie and Judd and Purple Daily, where we admit that we were wrong about some things. But let's start with sort of this. Well, first of all, they are underdogs. The early line is like -2, I think, Philadelphia for this Monday night game. But last night, if you guys out there in the audience have not consumed it yet, Trenches with Boone over on the Purple Daily YouTube channel and podcast feed, he was drinking quite a bit of Vikings Kool-Aid as well and just raving about Kevin O'Connell and the breath of fresh air offense. And he said, from a football player standpoint, it's one thing to believe in the offseason and to have optimism and everything, but when you go out on the field and you do what they did to the Packers, he said it's a very powerful thing when the locker room of 53 guys is having fun, it's positive, and they're seeing results, that is sort of the holy grail feeling that you want inside of an NFL locker room. And, of course, it's only, we kept couching it, it's only one game, right. But to what extent do you think they've tapped into some sort of holy grail where they've got some great pieces on the roster, they've got some positive vibes, they just validated everything they felt in the offseason by smoking the Packers at home? They kind of stole a game because they were underdogs. That was one of the games that a lot of people were looking at and saying, maybe that's one of the home losses, right? So they kind of stole a game in week one. I don't know. What do you guys think of what they've tapped into here?
I think it's very interesting because I think there's a lot of discussion points off of this because it's one game, and it was impressive. And I think the thing that everyone thinks too, and this is my starting point, is, was it really this hard to do this? Like that's the thing. For at least 2 years, we've been calling for, you know what you should do? Use Justin Jefferson more. You should be more creative offensively. You should do this and that. And they were like, no, you don't understand our football philosophy. And if we thought that, the players did too. Smart football. I mean, this was not that hard. This was being stubborn. And so O'Connell, and what I like is he comes in and he sees the obvious to success and says, yeah, you know what? We're going to do that. We're going to feature arguably the best wide receiver in the league. We're going to empower Kirk because if Kirk's empowered, he's far superior to what Kirk is when he's being put down. And so I love what I've seen from this team as far as the tone that's been set. And it's even better because Zim was such a bleep. So it becomes even more empowering to players who are like, oh my God, this is what we wanted, right? Mm-hmm. And yes, they could be on to something special, but it's one game. And I also urge you, although the personalities are much different here, I also urge in a long season to recall in 2006, at one point, Brad Childress was 4-2. And they were going to play the Patriots, and we thought if they beat the Patriots, oh my God, like it's on. Like this team can win a division because they could have. And then the Patriots came in and were like, oh yeah, you know what? X, Y, and Z works against you. And it got shut down and then things. Now, I do not expect things to go south from a locker room standpoint, which it did with Brad. Kevin O'Connell is smarter than that.
Did it go south that early with Childress, though, or did it take a little while?
Well,
I'm trying to remember.
It went south football-wise the second the Patriots game was done.
Because right. So it went south in 2006, but then it kind of, it was never amazing under Childress, right. But yeah. Okay.
So it went south from a football standpoint schematically in 2006 after that Halloween game against the Patriots. It did not go south with him as far as personality with players went until late in that season. And I do not expect O'Connell to have that problem. My point is, it's got to play out some here. And the other thing, too, is they're going to hit adversity, and we have no idea what happens. It's the question I asked O'Connell in training camp. What happens when you get a phone call at 2 in the morning and something's gone wrong because it's now on your plate? It's not on Sean McVay's plate, and he might call you in the morning and be like, hey, we got a problem here. And so, like, there are so many questions. My starting point is very simple, though. I am incredibly encouraged by what I saw on Sunday because it made sense. So I'm not even like asking yet for the, oh my God, I think they're on the precipice of a special year. They could easily be a playoff team. That is not going out on a limb. But you know what? When you spent 2 years watching Justin Jefferson play really well statistically and pile up stats, but in some ways be suppressed to what he can do, and now he's just unleashed. That to me is such a huge step. So my positivity is not, I think they're going to win 13 games. I still think that they're probably going to lose on Monday, and I think that they can win about 10 games. My positivity is the step in the right direction that this entire program seems to have taken.
See, there's a likability to them already, right? Like Judd brought out that point, and even put a little bit of crutch with this, but like in 2019 with the Twins, that was a likable team. Like they got off to such a hot start. They were the Bomba squad. They were having fun. They were hitting a bunch of home runs. I know the decision making at the end with Randy Dobnak puts a sour taste, but for the majority of that season, it was a likable, fun team. The Wild from this last season, another likable, fun team. Like Kirill installs the superstar to them. They go out and make big moves at the deadline. They have a GM who's not afraid to do it. They have a coach who knows what he's doing. There was a likability to them where both of those teams, and now the Twins are currently in it, where it's just they are hard to root for. They really are. They're hard to root for. The Wild, same thing. Towards the end of Bruce Boudreau, it was hard to root for that team. Where Kevin O'Connell steps in here and preaches that positive vibe, and that's all great. But then if it doesn't translate to on-field success, and you don't see that with your eyes either, it's hard to buy all in, and it's really easy to get all in right now with this Vikings team.
The Twins are the dog, the gif of the dog. Is it a dog in the burning room? It's a dog in the burning room.
This is fine.
This is fine
This
gif.
is fine.
Yeah. Or it's like, everybody come out and cheer on the Twins at the ballpark. Everything's fine. You don't understand. We're injured. If we just weren't injured, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And the Vikings were kind of getting to that point in a way under Mike Zimmer. Everything's fine. You just need a new offensive lineman here, and then everything's fine. In fact, it's funny. Some of the fights that Judd and I are having, I feel like on Twitter the last few days are, you guys don't deserve to jump on the bandwagon now because you were all the critical, negative things you said. I wish I had it in front of me. We got a great email through the SKOR North app from somebody yesterday that said, you know what? Screw those people, because they are the ones. The people that were defending it, everything's fine with the Vikings. You guys don't understand. Everything's fine. No. Don't change the coach. Don't look at changing this or that. I mean, you and I probably took it a step further and said, you might want to consider just like nuking the whole thing and starting over and just getting the inevitable over with. I'll have something to say about that on Purple Daily today. But if you thought everything was fine and you were defending everything and you were justifying everything in this franchise that hasn't won a Super Bowl 60 years and you're okay with just mediocre football, you don't deserve to be on the bandwagon now. That's what I say. I say you should take a year off from being on the bandwagon because you accepted mediocrity spooned into your head for 2 years. We are the ones that pushed for change, had probably zero impact on the actual change, but now we get to jump back on the bandwagon.
Now, here's what I'd say, though, to those fans who are just going to be blindly Purple Kool-Aid drinking fans. They're fans, and that's fine. People
they should take a timeout, though. They should take a timeout from the bandwagon.
People like us, and I feel like the Purple Daily family, hey folks, all think the same, which is how the team thinks. How the team thinks is, this is not good. Like, we want to start to win. This is off. This is wrong. And so what I like about our show and what I love about the people that consume our show is I feel like they think the same, which is, how do we get to a place of success? If you are just, hey, I'm just a Vikings fan, and if you're negative, that's terrible. I don't agree with you, but I understand that. But what I think that we all saw, or a lot of us saw, was the fact that things were off. It's just like the Twins now. The Wild was the same way. Parisi and Suter, what are you talking about? Well, something's off. Something's not right here. Like, we're around these teams a lot. We see things, and fans, smart fans, pick up on things too. So, yeah, I am far from declaring this a special season, but I get what Alex is saying. And most importantly, I think that everybody has every right to be incredibly enthusiastic about basically kicking the ass of a team that most people in this town can't stand, the Green Bay Packers. No problem with that. That's great.
Yeah. There's another angle here, too, that I think we should keep an eye on. I keep thinking about what Boone said on Trenches with Boone. Again, check it out. Just an hour-long conversation. Put a quarter in Boone and watch him go. But he kept talking about that holy grail feeling that once you capture it, look out. And, obviously there are some teams that finish with 15 wins or 14 wins, and it's just because they have Hall of Famers everywhere. That Patriots team that went undefeated in the regular season. But there's a lot of the teams that wind up getting scorching hot 13 wins or 14 wins. I would even put the 15-win 98 Vikings in this category. You have to have some really good players and some borderline to ironclad Hall of Famers. So that's a prerequisite. And the Vikings have that. The Vikings have Justin Jefferson. That dude's probably a Hall of Famer. Dalvin Cook, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but he's one of the best running backs in the league. They've got some great pieces on defense. Harrison Smith might be a Hall of Famer. So they've got Danielle Hunter, Zadarius. But beyond that, it's about finding exactly what your identity is, what works exactly, and hammering it, and then getting the crowd behind you at the home games. That Eagles team that won the Super Bowl, there was nothing outwardly special about their quarterbacks, or they had some good pieces here and there, but they didn't have like a Jerry Rice or a Randy Moss. But they figured out some of the things that worked for them. The crowd started wearing dog masks to the home games, and it just became impossible to beat that team in Philadelphia. The 98 Vikings, it was like, holy crap, we can just throw the ball down the field to this one guy, and the crowd's going to be louder than any crowd in the NFL, and it just becomes this wave of momentum. And I don't know what that looks like for this year's team. Maybe it's just Justin Jefferson becomes Jerry Rice unstoppable, and he's on pace to set records, and then their pass rush was Zadarius and Danielle Hunter. But you can sort of see that teams that aren't necessarily, 7 Hall of Famers up and down, how they can tap into the thing that works on both sides of the ball, get the home crowd behind you to win 8 or 9 games at home, which is they have 9 home games, don't they, on their schedule this year? Again, it's one game, but you could start to see, in that one game, it was like, whoa, here's the thing that works offensively. Here's the thing that works defensively. Can you tap into that 13 times this season? Interesting to see.
And I think the important thing too is, and this is where sports gets really intriguing, is especially coming off what the Vikings did last year. If you get a group of players who get along and now feel like they are being supported, especially like Kirk, it becomes important. And I'm telling you, what I saw from Kirk post-game, I thought was incredibly important, because that was probably Kirk Cousins as comfortable as Kirk can be, and that's a huge step. I've never seen Kirk that comfortable in his own skin, which I would argue has been a problem. There's also a clip that's going around after Justin Jefferson, and Kirk talked about this, scored, I think, his second touchdown, where Kirk went up to him on the bench and said, "You finish, man. Nobody finishes like you. Like, you don't just get the ball, you score." And he's hitting him on the back, and like the entire exchange is very positively Kirk trying to be like, man, you're great. And Jefferson, to his credit, just like, yeah, man, I sort of know that. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, if you can get everybody right now to a place of comfort, and there's a newness now that I think is completely refreshing. Started day one of training camp. And now the most important thing is, yes, hitting on what this team does well. That's incredibly important. But the other part about this too is, if they can beat the Eagles, for instance, on Monday night, now you're going to have some momentum start to build of like, this is working. and guys are going to hold each other accountable, which becomes incredibly important. My only concern here would be if you got a couple of bad apples who are like, Kevin O'Connell's not going to do a thing if we screw up. We're going to take advantage of this. But the more that you have success, the more that the entire team's going to be like, oh, no, we're on the precipice of something special. Yeah. So, yes, there are definitely ingredients that I understand that Boone is saying. And I think this is one of my favorite things about sports is where this is tracking potentially, because that's when it gets out of the realm of what do the advanced metrics say? What do the statistics say? And now it becomes a very human mind game, but teams can thrive off that. And until you're around it and see it, you don't get it. I'll always go back to 2003 wild playoff run. Made no sense. And I remember at the start of that entire playoff, I was talking to Willie Mitchell for something, and he's talking about the big chalice that we're pursuing because players don't say the Stanley Cup, it's bad luck. And I remember thinking to myself, is he serious? Like, he's got no shot at a Stanley Cup. Just say that damn name, Stanley Cup. But they were building this weird momentum, and the momentum was a belief that they could achieve something that almost the vast majority, including myself, thought they had no chance at. And that worked. Like, that played a key role there. And so the more that this team starts to believe that Kevin O'Connell has them on the right track, that what they're doing is going to work, and you brought up a very important thing. The superstar in Jefferson is huge here. All of those things go into a stew that's sort of undefinable in some ways, but becomes incredibly important to a belief that they can do things that they might not be completely capable of doing, but belief takes you a long way.
And it takes you a long way, but belief is nothing without the validation of actually seeing the results on the
Correct.
field. And that's why I don't think their season would have been over or anything if they would have lost that game against the Packers, but it would have been a huge buzzkill for all of the positive feelings they've had going back to the opening press conference, to Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi reaching out to all the players. And like the first couple months were spent essentially them building relationships and saying, hey, we're not going to take direct shots at the old staff, but here's our culture. Here's what we're going to do. And then they start to install the playbook throughout the summer, and they start to work on situations in training camp. And out of all of that, after 7 or 8 months, okay, we're ready for week 1, and we feel great, and we do believe like 80%. Let's see what it looks like. And when you play like that in the first half, and there's a lot of things to nitpick actually in the second half. The offense kind of fizzled here and there, and I like that Kevin O'Connell came out and just right away said, I need to be better in these areas. I'm going to do a self-review. Like, I love that. It's just deflecting credit, shouldering the blame, great leadership. But to go out there and play the way that they did in the first half validates the 8-month lead up since Kevin O'Connell was hired. Only for a week, because if you get smoked by Philadelphia and then you wind up losing a couple games or something, this conversation could change. But this was a necessary step to get to where they want to go, which was playing the way they did in the first half. Validation.
And that's why this upcoming game, to me, is so important, because it's going to answer a lot, because you're going into one of the most hostile, if not the most hostile environments in the entire league. It's going to be loud. It's going to be tough. It's a good team. If you come out and win this game, it's going to be impressive. If you don't, I think the week 1 momentum is going to be like, well, that was fun, but clearly the Packers might not be that good, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so I think that this game is going to define a lot of where this team is at as far as a mental toughness standpoint goes.
Yeah. Speaking of mental toughness, by the way, I was grinding for a large chunk of my life through uncomfortable underwear. Mentally tough, but largely stupid. Mm-hmm. And then we discovered Chill Boys, the most comfortable underwear that you're ever going to put on. About, 9 months ago, I threw away all of my non-Chill Boys boxer briefs.
Should have.
Best decision I've ever made in my underwear life, gentlemen. How are Chill Boys making you feel?
It's mind-blowing. And even now, like, they're installing more hoodies and T-shirts.
The hoodie, dude.
The girlfriend tried to take the hoodie. It's like, oh, no. That is my hoodie. I am not letting you wear that hoodie. That is my hoodie. It's that comfortable. It belongs only on me. So not just the underwear. Now there's a hoodie game. Now there's T-shirt game. And I love it. It's the most comfortable fabric in the world.
Cool, calm, and collected. That's all I gotta say. Down there now, cool, calm, and collected. Thanks to our friends at Chill Boys.
Chill Boys cares about one thing, your comfort down there. And when you go to chillboys.com to get your Chill Boys, just tell them that Purple Daily and or Score North and or Mackey and Judd sent you along. Also a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company for helping businesses. I mean, they've been supporting us for a long time here on Score North and dating back to 1500 ESPN Radio, so we appreciate that. And they've been supporting businesses in and outside the state of Minnesota for over 100 years. You can find a full list of industries that Federated partners with at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. So, yeah, we have so much Vikings stuff the last 72 hours over on the Purple Daily podcast feed and the Purple Daily YouTube channel, and also here on Mackey and Judd, too. But you can go check out the flagship Purple Daily episodes, the Ventline celebration from Sunday, which is one of the 10 most popular, downloaded, viewed episodes of Purple Daily in the 2.5 years since we went podcast YouTube exclusive, plus Before We Die with Jesse and Thor, Realistic Randy Rants with Declan, and Trenches with Boone, all ready to rock for you to listen to. But let's take a break here for a second, and then we will get into our weekly accountability session and write that down predictions. Buckle up.